I should not tell you this story, but I can't help myself. And in order to get it, you have to know your Catholic theology. The story, the gospel. Jesus said, "Let the one without sin cast the first stone." And all of a sudden, a stone went past his ear toward the woman. And Jesus turned around and said, "Mother, go home." You know your Catholic theology. That's good for you, boys. Some of you appreciate that I once in a while give a little Bible study. So today's gospel, when the scribes and the Pharisees came to Jesus, they knew the law of Moses very, very well. The first 5 books of the Bible, the Pentateuch. We don't know that at all, but they knew it. So when they were questioning Jesus, they had some of this in mind. The first is Leviticus chapter 20, verse 10. If a man commits adultery with his neighbor's wife, both the adulterer and the adulteress shall be put to death. And then from Deuteronomy, chapter 17, verse 7. The hands of the witnesses shall be the first to raise their stones to put a person to death, and afterward the hands of all the people. Thus shall you purge evil from your midst. And Deuteronomy 22, verse 22. If a man is discovered lying with a woman who is married to another, they both shall die. The man who is lying with the woman as well as the woman. Thus shall you purge evil from Israel. If there's a young woman, a virgin, who is betrothed, and a man comes upon her in the city and lies with her, you shall bring them both out to the gates of the city and then stone them to death. The young woman, because she did not cry out, though she was in the city, and the man, because he violated his neighbor's wife. By the way, if you want to read some really gruesome stuff, you got to have a strong stomach. Read Leviticus and Deuteronomy, because it goes into all these different areas. So that's the situation. Now, the problem is, when we read the gospel, we don't see the holes in the gospel. Just to get you thinking. The woman was caught in adultery. Where's the man? Where are the people that brought her? And how did they find her? Were they peeping Toms? Was this really adultery? Or maybe she was raped? Or maybe this was sexual assault? There's lots of holes in that gospel. And the biggest one is what we don't understand, is that the Jewish authorities had no authority to put anybody to death. It was a hypothetical situation that they could not follow through on. Because at that time, the Roman government had forbid the Jewish authorities to put anybody to death. That was only the right of the Roman government. Jesus, you know the story. The Jewish authorities could not put Jesus to death. They had to bring him to Pilate, the Roman authority, who would pronounce sentence. So, as I said already, it's a hypothetical situation. They merely did this to trap Jesus. And so, as we know, and you know, and we've said before, our theme this last week of our 6-week message series about stones is judgmental. If there's one thing about us humans, as I said at the beginning, we can't help but judge. It's in our DNA. But we're asked today with the gospel and the scriptures to look at not only how we judge, but why do we judge? Most of us have a very weakened human opinion of ourselves. So we judge sometimes because we're envious. Somebody has some gift or talent or whatever material thing and we don't have it, and we judge them. Or we judge them to make ourselves look better. We want to be superior, we want to be noticed, we want to be loved, we want to be acknowledged. But don't only look at the fact that we judge, but think about why we judge. And we all know already, I don't have to tell you, that we don't know everybody's full story. When we see somebody doing something, we can only observe their actions. We do not know their motives. We do not know what pressures they might be under, what addictions or compulsions, or we don't know their circumstances. What brought them to this? We all the old sayings, don't judge a book by its cover. Never walk, Native Americans, don't judge anybody unless you walk with them a mile. So that's what we're called to think about today. Now, we also judge others because we want to change them, especially those close to us, those we live with, and so on. Because if you're like I am, we're all surrounded by people who think differently than we do, that act differently than we do, and we'll never understand why they don't do it our way. And we try to change them. Think about your conflicts in life. Aren't they usually about we wanting to change somebody else? So if I can give any advice, stop trying. Just accept one another as we are. And that will help us that we stop judging others. Again, our parish bulletin, Mickey Holtz, our youth minister here, wrote today's reflection. And again, it's just wonderful. And I want to end my remarks by summarizing what she says. And just by the way, here at Seton, I've never been with a staff that's more dedicated or faith-filled. I've been a priest for over 50 years, and I've been in many parishes, but there's none that compare with our staff. Don't miss it. Very few parishes are so blessed as we are. So Mickey talks about the fact that we judge others because we want to point at them away from ourselves. Many times what we criticize in others is what we know we're guilty of. And then she gives 3 examples. A teenager that's pregnant. What do you think about that? But maybe we don't realize that she has the stamina not to have an abortion when her family wants her to have one and the society wants her to have one. But she has the strength to bring forth that child. How do you judge that? What about the people living on the streets? Those who suffer from the post-traumatic syndrome. Not only those in war, but those who go through traumatic experiences. If you've ever had a traumatic experience, what happens for most humans is that we have nightmares about that. But if the situation isn't too drastic, eventually the nightmares lessen. But those who have a traumatic experience, the nightmares never cease. How do you judge that? People on the street. People maybe that have gone through it, we don't even know they went through it. How do we judge? And then if somebody is too fat or too thin, don't we judge them? Why do they eat potato chips? Or why don't they eat more so they gain some weight? How do we judge? Why do we judge? And today we're challenged to, as I said at the beginning of Mass, to put a bridle on that. And as much as possible, stop judging. Why? Because that's what Jesus teaches, and that's what Jesus does. Jesus doesn't judge, he just forgives. And that's what we're challenged to imitate. When we hear God's word and receive Eucharist, we're supposed to become that. Not just hear it, but to live it. So once again, to symbolize that, I invite you to come forward. As you would at communion, pick up a stone from the different pillars, put it in our stone garden, and think about stop judging. you.